how cool to be on season 2 of the Travel Agents podcast. I never really thought we'd make it this far, but we did.
Yeah.
And we already have plans for like season 3 and 4, and we're just going to keep going, and we're having too much fun. And we have a lot more travels ahead of us. And I just want to say thank you to all the listeners who are giving us feedback, whether it be through email or in person or via text, about how much you're enjoying the podcast. It means a ton to us. There's one thing you can do that would really help us, and that is send cash. No, I'm kidding. That is subscribe to this podcast and leave a review. We would love a review. It only takes a minute. You don't have to write something long. Something quick is fine, right, Will?
Absolutely.
So please take a minute and stop and write us a review on whatever platform you're listening to this on. It really means a lot. Thank you, and enjoy our next episode.
We're the travel agents coming to you with tips, tricks, interviews, and voyages by cruise. The travel agents bringing you the latest travel news.
I'm Brian.
And I'm Will.
We're your hosts for the Travel Agents podcast. Hey, all you hikers.
Yeah, this is going to be a pretty outdoors extensive episode.
Yeah, get your boots. Get your
Water.
North Face gear. Yeah.
Snow boots if you're going in the winter.
Canteen, is that what you drink water out of? Camelback.
For sure, yeah.
Maybe a hat of some sort for the sun. No sun. Mostly.
If you're a hiker, if you've never hiked before, Pacific Northwest.
The Pacific Northwest. Will, where are we on the map here?
Yeah, so the Pacific Northwest spans Washington State, a little bit of Idaho, and Oregon State.
So, Will, why do you feel that we can trust you as you go to talk and tell us some really cool info about the Pacific Northwest?
Yeah, if you've listened to our Seattle episode, then you probably know that I had the privilege of living in the area for nearly a year. And so I got to do a lot of cool things in the area while I was there. And I'm excited to talk about some of my favorite things that I did and some of the things that I didn't get a chance to do that I wish I would have if I had a little bit more time. I'm going to preface by saying that we're not going to cover all the amazing stuff that's in the Pacific Northwest. I'm just going to be talking about 10 really cool things that I got to experience and a few things that I really wish I had a chance to experience. And we're also not going to be talking about Seattle or Portland. We have episodes dedicated to those two cities. So if you're interested in learning more about them, you can check out them specifically.
Will, I feel like in your year of living out there, you did more than the majority of locals do who have grown up in the Pacific Northwest their entire lives. You weren't even there for a year. You were there for a matter of
7 months.
Yeah. Yet you really took the bull by the horns, and you showed people around. You showed me around. You did a lot of travel yourself. You seeing some of your pictures and videos, I'm thrilled. Can't wait to hear what you have to say. Hit us up. This is like a top 10 list, correct?
Yeah, we're going to be talking about 10 specific locations today.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So, do you want to start with number 10 or number 1?
Well, hey, in no particular order.
Okay,
no particular order. We're talking about 10 really great areas.
Then let's go with number 1.
I'll kick it off.
Yeah.
Number 1 is actually going to be called the town of Leavenworth. It's a town in the Snoqualmie Pass area, which is in the Cascade Mountain Range. It's 3 to 4 hours away from Seattle. If you're going to the Pacific Northwest during the winter, this is probably going to be closer to 6 hours from Seattle because of the mountain pass. There's going to be a lot of snow. So this is one of those areas, depending on the time that you go, time of the year that you go, you really want to pay attention to what the route's looking like. Because one day it could be 3.5 hours long. The next day it could be 6 hours long. And the major road is completely closed because it's snowed down. But that's all about the route to get to Leavenworth. What is Leavenworth? Leavenworth is like Bavaria in Washington State. Bavaria being the little area in Germany and Austria, sort of like your Sound of Music area. And it's a very cool tourist town. I'll admit it's a tourist trap, but it's one of those tourist traps that is definitely worth going to.
Yeah.
Everything is styled in the same way of Bavaria. So you have that sort of like mystical German signage, something you would have seen in like Disney or something like that.
Yeah.
Really great place for you to see some local shops, get some German pretzels, get some German beer, some German beer cheese. So there's a lot of German culture in this area, and it makes you feel like you're in Bavaria. I highly recommend it if you've ever been really interested. And it's not just a little town to go and hit the shops, get some cool food and stuff. It's a really great place to do some hiking and do some kayaking. You are in the Cascade Mountains, and the Cascade Mountains surround you, and it's just absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, these pictures are awesome, and the architecture is truly unique. It feels, looking at these pictures, it's like I'm in Germany. I wonder if they have the Christmas markets all set up. I see a lot of Christmas lights here, which is cool.
Yeah, definitely.
You're surrounded by mountains, and really looking on the map, you're pretty smack dab in the middle of Washington State.
You are, yeah. Like I said, you really are embedded in the Cascade Mountains. I won't go too deep into the history here, but essentially, I think in the 70s it was, a guy was like, hey, this is a really beautiful location. Let's just kind of make it really touristy, and we're going to style it after Bavaria. He had no connection to Bavaria, to my understanding, and it's just been a really popular destination.
Will, do you look at this as a day trip from Seattle, or do you look at this as you can stay a couple nights here?
So if you're just interested in like the town itself, it's definitely a day trip. But if you want to do some hiking, some snowboarding, or kayaking, skiing, again, depending on the area that you're in, it's a good place to headquarter.
That's a cool start. Yeah, I mean, pictures alone, this is awesome.
Yeah, look it up if you're not familiar with it. I highly recommend looking some pictures up. It's a really cool area if you're really interested in pretzels and beer and German culture. Yeah. It's going to be the place to go.
There you go.
But that leads us to our next location.
Number 2. Real quick, I re-listened to our top 12 travel things we should take with you for the season finale of season 1, Will.
Yeah.
Over the weekend, I listened to it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot to say number 7, number 9. Like, I didn't. We just kind of started talking, and we totally forgot to tell them what number we were on. We learned.
Yeah, good catch.
Number 2, Pacific Northwest. Go for it, Will.
The Big Titan, Mount Rainier. It's in the backdrop of every photo of Seattle. And it is a very cool place to go. Even if you're not an experienced hiker, even if you have young kids with you, maybe grandma and grandpa is going with you, there are some really cool stuff that you can still do out at Mount Rainier. A little bit of a precaution, because being from Ohio, there are some things about the area that I would have never thought about until I went to go try and visit Mount Rainier in February.
Yeah.
So being in Ohio, and we don't have mountains, do we, Brian?
Not quite. We have some hills.
We have hills, nothing like Mount Rainier. We don't have to think about, putting on chains for our tires. We don't have to think about blizzard-like conditions when it's sunny. The ecosystem can change very quickly at Mount Rainier. You might be going to the foot of the mountain, and it's sunny, beautiful, even if it is February. But as you quickly ascend the mountain, it's going to be very snowy. You're going to see some feet of snow. Generally speaking, from the months of November to May, in order to get into the park, you have to have chains with you to put on your tires. Those are those situations you might see some truckers, they put the chains on before they go through a mountain pass in Colorado or something like that. You're going to need those in the car. You don't need to put them on unless you need them. So something to keep in mind, you can rent them before you go into the park at a few locations.
Yeah.
They're $20, but I highly recommend you just try and go to Rainier during those summer months where you don't need them, because those months where you need those chains, it's feet of snow. And there's an element of danger there if you're unprepared when it comes to hiking in those situations, because it might look like it's flat because the snow is so high, but you might be walking on flat land and then all of a sudden you're on a hill and you might sprain your ankle, break your ankle, you might fall and go somewhere you don't want to be. So just those are the precautions. But all that's aside, Mount Rainier, I mean, there's 275 miles of trails within the park.
Oh my gosh. So
there's trails there for experienced hikers.
Okay.
There's people there that can go and climb the mountain and reach the summit. Those very few people that are listening.
Yeah.
And there's stuff for families, for grandma and grandpa, for, your little babies and all that stuff. No pets allowed within the park. That's kind of a staple for a lot of national parks out west. But Mount Rainier, the starting point is a little town called Longmire. That's probably going to be where you're going to get entry into the area. And it's going to lead to one of the more popular areas within the park called Paradise. And from there, it's going to be a really great location for some really short hikes, short scenic hikes with a lot of waterfalls, beautiful shots of Rainier, some groves, flowers, all that kind of stuff. So Rainier, I highly recommend checking it out. If you want some more tips, I recommend checking out Mount Rainier National Park's Twitter account or the website. That's the National Park Mount Rainier website or the Twitter account. They're going to have updates about the park, whether a portion of it is closed, whether it's open. More specifically, in those kind of wishy-washy months, they're going to have information about road closures.
Okay, that's helpful. All right, number 3, Snoqualmie Falls.
Yeah, Snoqualmie Falls, man. Not one of those areas that like you hear about per se, like on the outside, but when you're a local, it's a huge location to go visit.
Okay.
It's a huge location for you to go visit. And I think that might be because it's one of the more closer locations to Seattle. It's only about an hour away. It's in the town of Snoqualmie. It's just outside of it. And Snoqualmie Falls is actually the largest waterfall in Washington.
Wow. Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah. So if you look up All Trails, which is one of my go-tos to look up when it comes to any sort of trail hiking, whether that be like a paved road to like ascending Mount Rainier, All Trails is going to list this as an easy hike. Now, it is easy because it's paved, but that's not to say that it's for like all ages. Like if you have bad knees or you're elderly, there's 2 ways to see the falls. The first is to see it like right away. As soon as you park, you walk maybe 100 feet and you're going to see the falls. However, if you want to go down to like the river side of where the falls are, you're going to be going down a really steep hill. And it's about a mile long. It's very easy, but even on the descending down, it's pretty hard on the knees. And then going up, you're going up a really steep hill. So just keep that in mind. It's not necessarily like an easy hike, but it's very, very beautiful. I mean, it's a gorgeous, tall waterfall. And there's a little resort there. A popular lodge is right there. And if you have dogs, this is going to be the place for you to go.
Nice. Well, tell me if this stereotype is right or if I'm way off. It just seems like the Pacific Northwest it's in all its beauty and absolute splendor. It is just this area of the world that at all times is just like 40 to 50 degrees and damp and maybe some rain and clouds, no sun. Is this a lie or is this true?
I would say for the most part, like the closer you get to Seattle and like the Puget Sound area, it's going to be really rainy and it's going to be warmer. The closer you get to the mountains, it's going to be a lot snowier and a lot colder. But it's still like pretty normal on all accounts, like during spring and summer.
Yeah, just tough to know how to pack.
Definitely, yeah. So without getting like too deep into like the logistics of the geography, essentially what it is the Pacific current from the Pacific Ocean comes into the area of the Pacific Northwest and it bounces off the Cascades.
Oh, wow.
So that's why you get all that moisture in Seattle, in Puget Sound area. But when you get closer to the Cascade Mountains, that's when things kind of become sort of normal in terms of like a normal sort of ecosystem when it comes to rain and snow and summer and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
So the closer you are to the mountains, you can kind of anticipate like more, like less rain and more snow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks.
All right. Number 4, the San Juan Islands, which are about 3.5 hours from Seattle.
Yeah, the San Juan Islands are a really cool cluster of islands. I had heard of them from like a really funny YouTube video that kind of takes like historic comedic
license.
Yeah, I had heard about it from like a really funny YouTube video that kind of talks about like history and stuff like that. So they were on my radar, but I didn't really know like the scope of how cool they were. It's a beautiful place to find pods of orcas. So if you're interested in trying to find some killer whales, trying to do some orca whale watching, the San Juan Islands is going to be your place to go. In fact, they have an island called Orca, and that is one of the more popular locations to go. I believe about all year round, you can anticipate about 400 orcas, like a really large pod resides in the area. So you do have a really high chance of seeing some orcas. You can drive there and then get onto a ferry, or you can actually just take a 4-hour ferry ride from Seattle. So if you're staying in Seattle, you'll get on the ferry and you'll cross the Salish Sea into the islands. And once you're there, there's a lot of really cool stuff that you can do. I mean, if you're really interested in sort of those really classic, quiet, quaint beach towns, there's going to be a lot of opportunities there for you to experience. If you want to do some beautiful scenic drives, beautiful scenic biking routes, there's a lot there too. If you just want to chill, relax on the beach, it's going to be your place too. I mean, it's a lot of cool opportunities there.
So they say that there are actually 172 named islands in the San Juan County region. About 20 of them are inhabitable. And this is interesting geography because it's really butted up right next to Canada. You have Seattle, the San Juan Islands, and then the border of Canada right there. And on the other side of that border, you have Victoria, very popular hotspot for many people, going across Canada and finishing their tour after Vancouver by ferry or plane down to Victoria before heading home.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting like historical location.
Okay.
In fact, like we almost went to war with Great Britain right before the Civil War because of this area just due to land disputes. Essentially, an American guy shot a British guy's pig on this area that's very disputed, and they are going back and forth on whether or not to trigger a war. Luckily, cooler heads prevailed, and war didn't break out, but there's just this like interesting tidbit of history about Canada, British, and America in this area. So if you're interested in history, that might be something to look at and get acquainted with. It's called the Pig War. I think it has a few other names, but I think it's really popularly known as the Pig War.
Will, as you're going to be driving through this area, you're going to see some pretty amazing trees. I remember I was jaw dropped. I'm sure if you live there, you're used to it. The same way I've had people visit Ohio and say, you guys have amazing trees. I'm like, really? Oh, okay, cool. I didn't notice.
Sure.
But I remember, are those evergreens?
I think so. Yeah, I believe they're called evergreens. I mean, the
Blue
state's
spruce?
called... It's the Evergreen State, Washington, I should say. And so, yeah, more than likely, they're probably evergreens, and they're just huge, 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 huge trees.
Just a fun thing when you're driving, and then oftentimes you're on a Washington's highway.
Yeah.
Is that going north to south or east to?
North to south. It's the I-70.
I just remember seeing gorgeous trees, and then you come across a sign that says you're on a Washington highway, and there's a picture of George Washington's like silhouette of his hair and his head.
It's fun.
Yeah. Because in Ohio we have the shape of Ohio, but there it's George Washington's head. You ready for number 5?
Yeah, let's talk about number 5.
The Olympic Peninsula.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a lot to talk about the Olympic Peninsula. I'll admit it's my favorite area in Washington. But you had a chance to experience some stuff in the Olympic Peninsula.
I did. I loved it. Driving up the Washington Highway.
Yeah.
And seeing all the beautiful trees, and then just some really interesting and beautiful stops. A good mixture of water, rocks, and like forest, mountains.
Yeah, a lot of mountains. Yeah.
But the beaches were interesting, Will, because it's not Florida.
No, not at all.
But they're bigger beaches, so it's not Europe. They're big, but it's interesting. Hard to explain.
It is, pretty hard to explain. The best way I could describe it is if like you've ever been to like one of those, northern climate beaches. It's pretty similar to that. It's not quite sand, and it's not quite like those like really gritty like pebbles or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like an in between.
Yeah.
But there is, definitely a lot going on those beaches. They're so beautiful. Yeah. They're just so much more quieter.
Yeah.
And there's just a lot more of like an element of like tranquility there. And it's just gorgeous.
The Pacific Northwest is a gorgeous area.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you want to visit the Olympic Peninsula, it's a really great trip that you can do, almost like a round trip. If you could picture the Olympic Peninsula, it's almost like a circle, really, at its core. And in the middle is Mount Olympus. And Mount Olympus kind of dictates everything that's going on with the ecosystem there.
Okay.
And so if you want to visit Olympic Peninsula, I would just suggest doing this huge round trip. It's about 8 hours really entirely if you were going to do a whole circle.
Okay.
And one of my favorite things to do is to actually go the southern route and stop by Forks. Forks, popularly known as the setting of Twilight. If you're a fan of, what's the other show?
Team Jacob.
Team Jacob
versus Team Edward.
Of course, yeah. There's a lot of stuff there. If you are into Twilight, there's going to be a lot of stuff there.
Is there a tour?
I think there is.
I think there was.
I think there is a Twilight tour. Forks is a really popular destination to kind of just stay overnight because it is sort of in the middle of that 8-hour round trip. So if you're going from the south, it's 4 hours. If you're going from the north, it's 4 hours. And the other show I was thinking of, it's like a horror show.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
No,
I know what you did last summer.
No. Twin Peaks. Very cult following. So for the one fan that likes Twin Peaks, that's for you, my friend.
Okay.
Great spot for a rest area, great spot for camping. It's a good place to pick up a burger and, get your bearings a little bit. But once you've hit Forks, you're probably interested in seeing some of the more naturey aspects. And when you're talking about beaches, I highly recommend visiting Ruby Beach. It's a very...
Oh, we did this.
Yeah, this is the one that we did. Very gorgeous beach.
So cool.
It's off the Olympic Peninsula. You're going to see sort of I don't know if a haystack is the right word for it. But just this rock formation is just right there. You can see it, and really popular place to do some bonfires, do some camping, do some seaside camping, and really beautiful area. Yep. Fly a drone. Got some drone footage. Heck yeah.
And this is amazing.
Yeah. On your way to the northern part of the Olympic Peninsula, you're actually going to see my favorite part of the Olympic Peninsula, and that's the Hoh Rainforest. Brian, do you remember the Hoh Rainforest?
It was like I was walking into Lord of the Rings, fairy tale land, something out of it wasn't real. I remember are we looking at something real? Is this make believe? Are we in Disney World or something? But no, it's legit. It's amazing. It's real. How do you even go to describe Hoh Rainforest?
Yeah, one of my friends that went and visited it said it was reminiscent of the area in Star Wars. I think in the end when they defeat the Empire, Endor, I think, is the one with the little Ewoks. That area.
Ewoks. Yeah, where they fly the things.
Yeah.
Oh, what are those called?
I forget what they're called.
I'm on
get into the real nitty gritty, the important aspects of this. But the Hoh Rainforest, interesting thing, the only rainforest in America.
Oh.
And it's in Washington State. And I think that gives it a testament to how crazy the ecosystem is in this state and in this area. So if you've never been to a rainforest, it is just that. It's going to rain there. And it's so interesting because it was a beautiful sunny day. And as soon as we got into the area, it was almost like this cloud was just all around this beautiful forest. And the rain's coming down and the water is just gorgeous. I mean, it's picturesque. I mean, you're talking feet of water that is completely clear. It's unbelievable. If you get a chance to go, I highly recommend going to the Hoh Rainforest. No pets again. So if you have pets, don't bring them here. You won't be allowed into the national park.
Speeder bikes.
Yes, there we go. For our Star Wars fans that are screaming at the stereo.
Episode 1, little Anakin is pod racer. This is different.
This is different. Yeah.
The bad guys run the Ewoks. No, the good guys were also on the speeder bikes.
I can't remember.
But these pictures from Return of the Jedi look exactly like the Hoh Rainforest. Is that where it was filmed?
I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know. Maybe you could look that up, and I'll talk about the next point. Once you've seen Ruby Beach, you've seen Forks, you've seen Hoh Rainforest, you're going to continue going up that north route. And probably the next thing that you're going to see is Lake Crescent. And we've talked a little bit about the Alps and Bavaria and all that stuff. This is straight from Bavaria. It's gorgeous, a beautiful, huge lake. The water is crystal clear. You can see all the way down to the depths of it. You're surrounded by mountains. On the right side is Mount Olympus and the Olympic mountain range. And so if you're really interested in taking a swim or taking a picnic, this is one of the spots to go to on your road trip around the Olympic Peninsula. But if you're really interested in doing some hiking, it's going to lead to our next aspect of the Olympic Peninsula, and this is Mount Storm King. This is the hike that I wish I could have done, but I'm not quite at this hiking level. This is listed by All Trails as an advanced hike. It's only 2 miles, but I think it's listed as an advanced hike because it's like a straight incline.
Mhm.
But if you climb it and you do the Mount Storm King route, you're going to get a beautiful scenic view of Lake Crescent and the surrounding areas. So if you're into hiking and you're looking for one of those really cool hikes to do, I highly recommend checking out Mount Storm King. It's right off of Lake Crescent on the northern part of the Olympic Peninsula. But once you see all of this area, and you're going to be really wild, even if you just do a road trip and you're talking about maybe 30 minutes in each location, you're going to have a really good time and you're going to just be blown away by the beauty that you see. The next really popular spot that you're going to see is Port Angeles. This is probably the biggest town, so to speak, on the Olympic Peninsula. If you're trying to get to Victoria Island in Canada, this is going to be your place to go to. It's a short ferry ride, about 90 minutes. You're going to need a passport because you're going to a different country. But if you decide to stay at Port Angeles, this is going to be a really great spot to check out some local shops, see some of the locals, meet them, and get some food. So great pit stop, great place to go into Victoria Island in Canada.
Nice.
But this leads us to the last aspect of the Olympic Peninsula that I really enjoyed. And this is the Hurricane Ridge. So Hurricane Ridge, beautiful paved trail. So it's a lot more on the easier side. You are in the Cascade, the Cascade Mountain Range. No, I'm sorry. You are in the Olympic Mountain Range. And you're going to see this really beautiful view. So if you're trying to get a really beautiful view of a higher altitude, this is going to be your place to go. A bonus tip in the Olympic Peninsula, there are going to be some really popular spots to see lavender fields in April. So if you want to see some lavender fields, this is going to be a spot for you to go.
Well, I feel like this episode is cruel because you're talking about these places that if you don't know it, these are just words you're saying.
I know.
You're doing a great job, but
I'm trying my
These
best.
pictures are breathtaking of every place you've shared.
Thank you.
That cool. Like you just have to go on Google or just go here. I was thinking as you were talking before we get into number 6, it seems like with the Pacific Northwest, you have Seattle, you have Portland, and then you have the rest. Mm-hmm. And it seems like how I often talk about Greece. You have Athens, and then you have the rest of Greece. Athens is this busy, crazy, dirty, awesome, historical city, right? And then you have the rest of Greece, which is like low-key, chill, relaxed. We go on our own time. When is the boat going? When I finish my cigarette. Like that kind of thing, right? Like it's just this. I feel like with the Pacific Northwest, if people are only thinking of the city of Seattle and the city of Portland, it's so small compared to how much there is to offer.
Yeah.
How much beauty.
I think if you're going to the area to just see those cities, and they're great cities, there's a lot to do in those cities. I think you're giving the area a disservice because to me, the best way to experience the whole region is rent a car and just drive, go and explore, have some adventure. There's something there for everyone. Sure. Yeah.
So Will, we're halfway there. You got 5 more in you?
Absolutely. As long as the viewers, one day, the listeners.
Number 6, Cannon Beach, Oregon, about 4.5 hours away from Seattle or 2 hours away from Portland. Will, tell us about Cannon Beach.
Yeah, so I'm going to start moving us into the Oregon side of the Pacific Northwest. Cannon Beach is one of the most, if not the most popular beach off of the very scenic Route 101. It takes you from the Olympic Peninsula all the way down to California. So this is a really popular place, a popular scenic drive for those who are trying to do some really beautiful road tripping. You're going to be along the ocean the entire time, but Cannon Beach is just this beautiful, huge beach with these large haystack rocks located right off the beach. This is the place to go to if you want to see a scenic beach. If you are on Route 101, you're doing this beautiful, long, scenic road trip. If you want to take a pit stop, Cannon Beach is right there. It's going to be it's a very popular tourist destination, so because of that, there is a lot of industry there. So it's going to be a great place It's going to be a great place to stop, get a quick bite to eat, check out some breweries. Very cool location right off of Route 101.
Awesome. Next, number 7, Multnomah Falls, 30 minutes from Portland and 3.5 hours from Seattle.
You nailed it, man. You got that pronunciation nailed. Yep, Multnomah Falls. I believe that it's the tallest waterfall in Oregon, if not one of the tallest waterfalls in Oregon. It's also the most visited recreation site in the entire Pacific Northwest.
Wow.
And it is super close to Portland. So if you're staying in Portland, you got to check out Multnomah Falls. I remember when Kristen and we were driving from Ohio to Washington State, and we passed Multnomah Falls. And Multnomah Falls, when we saw it, and we had no idea what this place was, when we saw it, we were like, yep, we're in the Pacific Northwest. I think it perfectly encaptures in the area surrounding Multnomah Falls, perfectly encaptures what the Pacific Northwest is. I think it's quintessential Pacific Northwest. Because it is such a popular visited recreation site in the area, there are going to be a lot of people there. So you'll want to go early or later in the day. If you are interested in hiking, don't worry. Just like everywhere else in the Pacific Northwest, there are going to be a lot of great hiking opportunities. Just make sure that you're looking at all trails. You find the right trail for you and pick one that's for your skill level.
And tickets are required to visit the Multnomah Falls Recreation Area and Historic Lodge. It must be reserved in advance through recreation.gov. It's saying it's $2 per reservation.
We never paid anything.
Is that for the lodge? Did you go to the lodge?
No, we didn't go into the lodge, so it could have something to do with the lodge. To
Maybe
see
so.
the falls, if you want to just see the falls, you don't have to pay anything.
Sure.
And I don't remember there being anyone to like stop you from doing the hikes either. So I would probably put that just into the lodge.
It's good. All right, next, number 8, we have Crater Lake, which is 8 hours from Seattle and 5 hours from Portland. Will, what is Crater Lake?
Yeah, so this is one of those locations that it's definitely off the beaten path when in comparison to the other locations that I've talked about, but it's so cool. I just had to include it. Yeah. And this is also one of those locations that I wish I had the opportunity to do, but it was 8 hours away from us.
Sure.
And we just couldn't. But I wish that we could have. I know. I blame the dogs. We had the dogs. It was a lot harder to get dog sitters. But what is Crater Lake? Okay, Crater Lake is a lake inside a crater volcano. And you're going to have some really cool opportunities here. It's located in that huge Cascade Mountain range that spans the entire Pacific Northwest. But you can do some incredible hiking, as always, with the Pacific Northwest. At this point, I don't even think I have to say it anymore. Pacific Northwest, hiking opportunities. But if you're not into hiking, this is actually going to be probably one of the coolest scenic routes you can take. You can take the scenic route. It's called the Rim Drive, and it's going to take you around the entire circumference of the crater volcano around Crater Lake. Great place to do fishing, swimming, anything water sports. This is the place to go and see. It's worth going for the drive. Even though I didn't do it, I can tell you that it's worth it. This is one of the spots that a lot of locals are telling me to go to. A lot of people are saying this is their favorite place in the Pacific Northwest was Crater Lake. So I can highly recommend it based off of their opinion.
Awesome. Number 9 is Mount Hood, 45 to 60 minutes from Portland, 3.5 hours from Seattle. I've heard people from Oregon say Mount Hood is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, Mount Hood is to Portland what Mount Rainier is to Seattle.
Would you say Mount Hood is to Portland what Mount Fuji is to Tokyo?
Yeah. Yeah, that too. Yeah, absolutely.
Would you say Mount Hood is to Portland what Boston Mills is to Cleveland?
Exactly. No, I think Boston Mills is definitely a lot more important to Cleveland. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Not really.
Shout out.
So what is there to do in Mount Hood? I mean, Mount Hood is just like Mount Rainier. It has like the same, activities. It's this huge mountain, one of the tallest mountains in the area. I think it's only second to Mount Rainier. You're going to see it when you're in Portland. You're going to see it when you're near the area. There are a lot of scenic loops for scenic driving. If you're in Portland and you don't have time to do some hiking, but you want to stay in the car and do some scenic drives, you have opportunities there. If you want to do some hiking, spoiler alert, you can do hiking here.
There you go.
There's a lot of opportunities here. And if it's kind of like you're in between, oh, do I do Oregon? Do I do Washington? Either way, you're going to essentially have the same opportunities for yourself. Yeah. So Mount Hood, great place to go, do hiking and all that kind of stuff.
Will, do you think people need to do a Washington trip and they need to do an Oregon trip? Or do you say, no, you can really lump them into one? Pick and choose.
I think you might risk like redundancy, like maybe like in the aspect that like they're almost like mirror images of each other. Like Seattle and Portland bear a lot of similarities. Mount Rainier, Mount Hood bear a lot of similarities. I think the big difference liars would be Olympic National Park and then Crater Lake. I would probably base like your decisions off of those two aspects. If you're into wine countries,
Sure.
each state has options. In Washington, you have to go past the Cascade Mountains. So if you're staying in Seattle, you're looking at like a 2.5, 3-hour drive and you're in the wine country. In Oregon, there is a valley called Willamette Valley. It's just south of Portland. A lot of beautiful agriculture is being grown there. One of that being wines.
I wonder if Washington just gets more traction overall because of its location to Alaska and a great starting point for Alaskan cruises being so popular.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think that might be the case. I will say that Oregon is like, well, I don't know. They're so similar. They're so similar. Like they have huge contrasts in locations. Like, Oregon has like these rainbow mountains in parts of it. Parts of Washington is more reminiscent to Arizona, and like east of the Cascade Mountains, they get like 300 days of sunshine.
Yeah.
I mean, the area is just so similar. It's really interesting.
Interesting, because I think I keep hearing people from Oregon say, or even people not from Oregon say, Oregon is like the U.S.'s best kept secret. It's so gorgeous, and yet the tourists haven't quite caught on, because really the tourists are going to cruise. I don't know of any cruise line that goes out of Portland or even stops in Portland. I'm sorry, Oregon. Really, I don't know. Maybe, I'm talking big cruise liners. Obviously it's below it, you have California, which is huge into tourism, and above it you have Washington, which is huge into tourism. But I think Oregon is, I would like to check more of it out.
It's gorgeous. Now, I will say that I visited Oregon more as a tourist, and I visited Washington more as a local. So I got the tourist point of view when it came to Oregon. I liked Oregon more than I did Washington. Even when it comes to Portland, when it comes to the scenic stuff, the exception being the Olympic Peninsula. I love the Olympic Peninsula.
Well, in Oregon, you got your car stolen less.
Yeah, that's true. No, yeah. I mean, hey, little tidbit, got my car stolen in Washington. So I'm not salty. It's completely fine. I'm kidding.
Ready for number 10?
Yeah, let's wrap it up. I don't want to make this too long.
We're going to Idaho. 5 hours from Seattle, 8 hours from... No, are we 5 hours from...
Yeah, that's
Portland, or
5 hours away from Seattle, 8 hours away. Oh, yeah, I see. I put Seattle twice. 8 hours away from Portland.
How do you pronounce this?
I'm going to see you give it a go. Yeah, that's pretty close. Coeur d'Alene is how a red-blooded American would say it, I guess.
I like it.
I'm sorry to my French folk. It probably sounds a lot cooler if a French person says it. But Coeur d'Alene is in Idaho, and I had to give a little bit of love to Idaho. I think it's the redheaded stepchild of the Pacific Northwest.
Aww.
People always kind of think of Oregon and Washington comprising the Pacific Northwest, but actually a large portion of Idaho does as well. And Coeur d'Alene is a very beautiful, gorgeous lakeside city located in the northern part of Idaho. It's right outside the border of eastern Washington. And this is going to be a really great place if you're into water sports, whether that be skiing, boating, fishing, kayaking, canoeing, what have you. This is going to be the spot for you. For those individuals that are traveling on the eastern side of the Pacific Northwest. Maybe they can't make it out to Portland or Seattle, but they want to get a little bit of a taste of the Pacific Northwest. Coeur d'Alene is going to be the spot for you. They also have some really big casinos, and they also have an award-winning golf course. I hope it's not like a really famous golf course that all the golfers are like, oh, yeah, duh. But yeah, if you're into golf, I know that they have a really cool golf course.
Nice job, Will. That was a top 10 list. You crushed it.
I did what I could.
I feel like we should have had a term for Pacific Northwest, like Pac New.
Pack new.
I don't know. Oh, well.
Get the trend started.
I think it's easier to write the.
How about PNW?
Oh, is that it this whole time?
Yeah.
All right. That's nice. That's nice.
No, that's okay. No, I should have referred to it as that.
No. You did great. To wrap up the loose ends, the Endor from The Return of the Jedi, which is Star Wars Episode 6, was filmed in by the Redwoods, San Francisco.
Oh, yeah, that's
Moore
right.
Valley.
I knew that.
Redwood National Park, yeah.
That's right. That's one of those things.
Mostly on a private lumber company's property.
I wonder how much money they made off of that.
Could you not say that's sort of the Pacific Northwest, though?
I mean, I think geographically, I don't know what constitutes like what.
Yeah.
You should look that up.
San Francisco sure looks like, okay, if you went from San Diego to Seattle, right halfway between them, you're at Sacramento, and San Francisco's a little bit lower. I'm not sure if you can call the Redwood Forest Pacific Northwest, but boy, it sure looks like the rest of it.
So according to Wikipedia, the Pacific Northwest is defined by the geographic region in Western North America, bounded by its coastal waters of the Pacific Ocean to the west and loosely by the Rocky Mountains to the east. So I guess it's just kind of defined by the border of the mountains and the Pacific Ocean.
It includes chapters from Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, and Alaska.
Huh.
No California. Sorry, Return of the Jedi. Not for you. Will, great job. I learned a lot. Thank you, as always, to our fans and listeners from all over the world. How about that?
Yeah, really cool. Really cool.
Well, check it out. We have people listening that definitely aren't our own family.
It's pretty cool to get to this point. Yeah. And hey, we want to hear from you guys. Like if you guys have some advice, some tips, anything that you like about the show, anything you dislike about the show that you want us to do better, or something that you want us to touch on, reach out to us. I'm going to include the email that we look at for the travel agents. Feel free to reach out to us. Send us hate mail, send us love mail, whatever it is, whatever you want to say. Let us know what you're thinking.
And it really means a lot to see on our map here these listeners. Please just take 5 seconds and give us a rating on whether you're listening to us on Apple or Spotify or like the other 40 platforms we're on around the world. Like, please give us a rating, your honest rating. That's all we ask. We just want to know that you're out there, and because we appreciate you.
Yeah, and to our friends overseas, I would like to really befriend you guys so I can come visit you guys.
Please.
Specifically Norway. I see you, Norway.
Ooh.
All right, guys. I think that's all we have. We just appreciate you.
Over and out.
We're the travel agents, that's the end of